of lights. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, adventurers. Dylan here. And on today's podcast, I interview Victor Karlsson. He's an artist and conscious cartoonist. He refused his call for adventure until he attended his 9th funeral. His frequent interactions with death led him to an obsession with the question, what is the purpose of life? His burning desire to find a fulfilling answer to this led him to begin his quest for discovering a life worth living. He soon realized that his purpose was the quest itself. Inspired by this journey, Victor is creating a cartoon called Bananas, the show where he intended to remove the mental barriers of a divided society to help unite humanity by exploring the many perspectives life has to offer. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Victor. Hey, brother.
How's it going?
Good, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Got the butterflies flying around in there.
That's awesome, man.
I know.
I see you've got a plethora of heroes in that back wall.
You know, I felt like it was just, it felt appropriate, right?
Again, the spread of all of Marvel, man. I love it, man. It's our modern day gods and goddesses.
Oh, 100%.
The pantheon.
100%. Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
That's dope, man. So
I love it.
So I'd love to dive into it. So we were supposed to do a podcast after we chatted for a bit and we are going back and forth on your journey. We were supposed to do a podcast, going diving into this, and then a giant like ice blizzard tornado like knocked out your power, and so we had to push this back a bit. Can you talk to me a little bit about that journey and what happened and where you're at now?
That was an interesting experience. I mean, so I live in Austin, Texas, and as most of us know, Texas is not a cold state, right? I'm from Sweden, just to add on to that. So for me, I'm very used to cold climates and cold weathers and a lot of snow. So what ended up happening was we had a pretty severe cold front blow over pretty much all of Texas, and just overnight, everything froze. And to the point where like you cannot drive on the road. Like it's completely covered in ice. Like it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Despite being from Sweden, I'd never seen something like that, where it went from rain to just like ice like that. I mean, our whole entire balcony was covered in a layer of ice. So it was intense. And obviously Texas not being ready for this kind of weather, everything just shut down. I mean, everybody lost power. The water pipes froze, so people didn't have running water, and obviously nobody really, or majority of people don't have snow tires or snow chains, so there's nowhere to get around. So now people are sitting at home, no power, no electricity, no heating, and it's freezing weather, no way to get food, no way to get water. So there was a pretty intense few days there, where it was, I mean, seriously, people were figuring out ways to survive, and I mean, unfortunately, some didn't. It went to that extreme. But I can say that I'm extremely fortunate to be one of the people that actually ended up having electricity the whole way through. So I ended up hosting some friends. They stayed with us for about 2 weeks until their apartments came back up and running and everything. So yeah, that was pretty intense.
That's incredible. I mean, we're so used to being in like a comfortable bubble of life and Amazon anything and everything comes to us and all that stuff. How did it feel? Like, I mean, what was it like to be a part of the community? What was it like to has it shifted the way like culturally people interact with each other, or is it just business as usual now? Oh, speaking of a cold front, it looks like we lost a bit of a connection. He'll be back in 1 second, folks. In 3, 2, 1.
There we go.
Looks like we lost you for a half a beat. Not too sure why. Speaking of blackouts, right?
I know.
As it goes. No, but the question I was asking was, how did it affect you in terms of going through this? Oh, are we having another one? Is this two in a row with the internet? We lost him one more time.
I'm still here. I can hear you. I can see you.
Yeah. We seem to be losing connection. We'll try this for a little bit longer and see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Say it 2 times. All right. Well, sometimes the hiccups in the beginning.
I
So
know.
we'll try one last time. So
Yeah.
when we ask, we're in a society that we're used to having everything delivered, from Amazon
Hmm.
packages to goods to whatnot. That all went away basically overnight. How did that affect the culture, and did it have a lasting effect afterwards, on you and the people around you, or is it, now that it's come and gone, is it business as usual?
I would say there's definitely lingering thoughts for sure. Just the idea of how fragile things really are. I mean, with power, for example, yeah, it was really, it put you in a place where, the people that have prepared, we're talking about, say, conspiracies about apocalypse and things like that, that have been like super prepared. Well, they were thriving, right? They were, having a good old time with their solar panels, and they got stocked up on food and everything. So it was great for them. Um,
Mm. Oh no, man.
or is it again?
It skipped a beat. It didn't completely cut out that time, but this time it skipped a beat.
Okay.
From what I heard, you talked about doomsday preppers,
Yeah.
and the fact that they're having a great time. They had that confirmation bias of, it
Yeah.
was, I'm
Yeah.
right. This is it.
That's right. They were like, "Oh, score! You paid out." Yeah.
Yeah.
So on top of all of this, we had a 2-month-old baby too. So there's
Oh,
definitely a level of scare there, and just, I mean, we put up all the blankets we had, and just like covering all the windows, making sure that the heat that we had inside stayed inside. I had friends that ended up, you know, deassembling stools and tables and put them in the fireplace just to have heat. So it was really intense. And yeah, I absolutely would say there's a lingering thought, to be prepared to, buy that water filter just to have it at the house. So that, I mean, that's another thing. People would go outside and grab snow, boil it, and just to have something to drink.
yeah,
It was so apocalyptic in a way that it's something that you wouldn't really think to actually experience. And I
yeah,
remember friends of mine, they were saying, yeah, it snowed. I mean, this is any other snowstorm in Sweden, so why is this such a big deal? But yeah, I mean, it has everything to do with the infrastructure around it, right? Everything was not prepared. Nothing was prepared for this type of,
yeah. Wow, that's
yeah.
incredible. That's incredible. So then afterwards, you said the lingering thoughts. I mean, has it shifted what you do, how you plan, how you prep, or what is it? What is it? Has there been any lessons learned and revelations from this?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had the previous thought in, at some point owning some piece of land and like kind of going off grid, or at least have the options to.
Mm.
So that vision or that dream of mine is, I would say, it kind of bumped up a couple notches out on the bucket list.
Yeah,
Became a little bit more relevant for me. And yeah, and then especially having a child now too, it's just like, it's, yeah, I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. We're living in a crazy world, obviously we've seen that with this last couple of years with COVID and everything else that's been happening that's just
yeah,
shifted the world in a day. So, yeah, especially when it comes to the bare necessities like water, like food, it's just to stock up at least and to have a few days worth of, water, have a water filter and some canned food in the back of the cabinet that will be available in case something like this happens again.
that's
So
incredible.
totally.
That's incredible. So, before when we talked, you said you were commenting a lot of it about what is the purpose of life, and especially attending so many funerals.
Yeah.
I feel like this maybe, how did this add to your questions, your burning desire questions, and the cartoon you're looking to create?
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would say just that question, what's the purpose of life, has been my driving force since I was a kid. For a long time, I I wasn't really aware of the fact that I was asking myself these questions.
Mm.
And then once that awareness came to me, for a long time as well, I had a hard time with it because most people didn't ask those questions with me. Or if I asked somebody else that question, uh, oftentimes the answers that would come back would be like, oh, there's no purpose, or there's nobody would never know. Like you can't know that, right? So there weren't really any empowering answers to the question that fueled me for life. Like that was the only motivation I had a lot of days,
Mm.
to find an empowering answer to this question. So for a long time, I felt fairly alone on that journey of finding some type of purpose. And what that led me to do ultimately is I moved around a lot. I sought new places to see, to meet new people, to do as many things as I possibly could. So, for example, yeah, I moved from Sweden to California as an exchange student, as a 17-year-old, moving across the world, just to like see what's there, and meeting, people that live completely different lives than I'd ever been used to or ever known. There's definitely this aspect of like, oh, this only happens in movies. This is a movie in America type of life. uh, and I met people that actually live these things. I'm not only talking about, the good and exciting stuff, like the beautiful beaches of Southern California, for example, gorgeous. But I'm also talking about people with drug addicted parents, for example, or some of my best friends that were living in severe poverty. Like I'd never experienced anything like that previous to moving over there. So yeah, I was
So,
gonna say.
coming from Sweden, you didn't experience the extremes, the extreme wealth and also extreme poverty, and then coming to America, coming to California first, and then moving to Austin, Texas, you kind
Hmm.
of get exposed to these extremes, which caused you
Yeah.
to question and ponder these kind of existential questions a bit more. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, totally. And I think that what ended up happening too was, despite seeing these things and knowing people so closely, that with these my best friends experiencing these incredibly tough situations or living situations, there was still a lot of joy there. There was still a lot of happiness there. And of course, we all have ups and downs, but their ups were just as high as the ups I had in Sweden, where everything was great, or everything was happy medium, I should say. um, it's kind of like a Swedish thing. Everything is, there's a Swedish word it's lagom, which is like not too much, not too little, but it's not perfect. It's just like that sweet spot
Is this
in
logum? No,
lagom.
logum.
Yeah.
I want to use that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So like that kind of summarizes my life in Sweden. Everything was lagom, everything was good. It wasn't bad, it wasn't fantastic, and it wasn't terrible. So then when I moved and I met these people in these extremes, I experienced so many other different things. Um, and ultimately, I came to the realization that, which we've all probably heard at times, so that happiness really exists inside, right? Happiness comes from
Mhm.
inside and not from the outside. And having had that actual physical experience of seeing this in such firsthand, that
Mhm.
really shifted things in me. And yeah, it was really then that I kind of shifted my area of study from, I was really heavily into sales and entrepreneurship and business, because I had this thought that if I succeed in business and I make a lot of money, well, then I can not work much and I can just spend that money doing things that I love. And I went into sales and I did fairly well for a while there, but I quickly realized that that's just not how it works. The reason I made quota early is because I worked my ass off the end of last month, right? So, um, the concept of chasing money for happiness also failed me pretty quickly, and I was just I was just kind of left there with, I have myself, and I had all my friends, and I have the whole entire world. I have opportunity. I have possibilities. The world is pure potential, and then that was kind of where the idea got sparked in using all these stories that I've accumulated throughout this whole journey, and all these people that I've met that are living in these extremes or in these mediums,
Mhm.
and how interesting it would be if, say, for example, I would put my best friend's mom from Sweden together with my say like, well, somebody that in California that was dealing with a drug addicted parent. Like, what if I put them together and they were partners? They were the same age. Like, I created these characters and I just kind of shifted some things, and I just like it made me play around with all these different characters and archetypes, and like, what happens if you add these together, and what kind of conflicts arise, and what kind of clashes, and how would they click? Because I mean, I have friends in all corners of the world, whether no matter what religion they follow, or if there's no religion, or if whatever they believe politically or whatever. I just feel completely disconnected to their beliefs because I understand them as people. I understand that you know those are just layers on top of who they actually are. So then, since I've been able to learn that you know everybody has a reason for believing what they believe, even the craziest things. For example, my wife's my wife grew up her whole life with a drug addicted father, and he fairly recently passed away. He was murdered, and that was kind of how her life journey got started on, finding purpose. But after we've really been digging into that and understanding, you know, yes, my wife missed out on having a father her whole life. But when she really started digging into this and she understood that the reason that he was dealing with these drugs, the reason he was taking these drugs was because that was his escape. He was in so much pain and suffering because after his passing, a lot of stories from his past came up. And upon reflection, we understood that this is why he couldn't cope. He wasn't able to deal with all the things that happened to him. So the only thing he could do, the only thing that made sense to him at the time was to drown himself in the drugs. And so what came from being resentment and a lot of pain came in or turned into compassion, and just a level of unconditional love that I've never seen before. So with so many of these type of realizations that I've had along this journey, and understanding really why people do even the craziest things like that, right? Where they miss out on their entire family's life for drugs. I understand. I get it. So that is ultimately the kind of perspectives I want to portray with my cartoon that I'm developing now, is to tell, basically share the stories all together in a way that you're seeing the same day unfold from a lot of different perspectives. So what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and we take as truth is for somebody else definitely not true, right? Get on Facebook for a minute and we'll see that, right? Like, people have very different truths or beliefs of what truth is. And when I've been digging into this and cutting things open, I've been seeing that ultimately, well, there's two ways to look at it. It's either that all of these truths are true or none of them are true, right? So in the same way, it comes to that, glass half empty, glass half full kind of concept of like everybody's truth is true to them.
So then, reflecting back here, so you've gone through a lot of hardship, you've seen a lot of death, and within the death, you've gotten a lot of lessons, a lot of insights,
Yeah.
on the meaning of life and the way that people handle the difficulties of life. And so you want to take that and you want to portray that in a cartoon, possibly a virtual reality cartoon, to be able to give those lessons to other people, maybe without so much of the trauma and impact of the actual death itself.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
I would absolutely say so. And I think that's the power of storytelling, is that we get the chance to really connect with somebody, whether it's a cartoon character or just another person, right? It's that ability to connect, to feel how they feel. Because ultimately everything we do for a feeling, right? And so if we can share stories to help people feel these feelings, we can save, I believe that I can save somebody from having to go through the same exact experience as I did and all of that suffering by kind of giving them that shortcut and telling the story that they would otherwise have gone through by themselves and kind of giving them the path of like, here's how this can go. And of course, you know, everybody still has the power to choose and to choose their own reality. Um, but when you get to see some of the things that are fairly obvious in certain scenarios, it's like, oh, I really don't have to. Okay, for example, if with the awareness and understanding that we have today, if my wife's dad was still alive, we've talked about this a lot of times, that we know that we could connect to him in a different way instead of having that underlying resentment that was there then. Now coming towards him with unconditional love, I know that we could have helped him out.
Do you, so in a way, is the cartoon kind of a way to help people avoid the I don't want to call it mistakes, but the lessons learned from what you've done, and to kind of show them another path of what's possible? Is that
Partly, I would say
partly?
partly. Another thing too is because I've lived so many places, seen so many people. Um, yeah, for example, I mean, in Sweden, just a big old middle class. Northern California, where I lived, super generalizing here, but think very Republican, kind of conservative. And then moving to South Texas to a Hispanic family, which is, again, a completely different experience, a completely different culture, a completely different way of life. And making or becoming incredibly good friends with all of these people. And in seeing the level of racism and the kind of barriers that are between all these groups of people that I've lived with, to kind of help bring down the barriers in a way, to help people on this side of the fence, understand why people do it this way on this side of the fence. Uh,
You basically showed up to a party and you're wondering why everybody's mad at everybody.
that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
You're trying to figure, okay, so why, what happened here? Who's in the
Uh-huh.
what? It's like you're like the new kid on school, and there's all these clicks, and you're trying to understand why everyone's clicking. Okay, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. So
Yeah.
let me ask you then. So talk to me about where are you at in the cartoon creation process. What's your plan? What's your roadmap? Let's dive into some of these, like the process of where you're at and where you're trying to go with all this.
Totally. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things about this whole project is that
Mhm.
I'm learning as I go.
Mhm.
I always say that I'm not an animator. I'm not a director. I'm not a storyteller even,
Mhm.
but I sure will be by the end of this,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, every day I'm reading books. I'm taking animation courses. So
Mhm.
I'm still in the process of learning how to animate
Mhm.
and story writing and screenwriting, all the good stuff. So I'm very open and public about this journey and about this
Mhm.
process. And every time I finish a piece of animation, which, for example, today I'm going live after this podcast with my first little short film that I finished
Beautiful.
yesterday. Yeah, super exciting. So just like little parts and little victories like that, I'm sharing and I'm bringing community in to co-create with me essentially. So the animation process is running. I'm learning a lot every single day.
Mhm.
And in terms of story writing, one of the things that I've been doing, because in the back of my mind, I've always had this idea that this is something that I will do one day. I think the reason I haven't done it earlier is obviously because of how life works. But if I'm trying to like give a description of why, it's because of limiting beliefs of,
Mhm.
there's no way I could ever become this, or how would somebody hire me when I don't even know the skills? So then that just after so much waiting and so much pushing, holding off, I just came to a point where I'm like, this is the only thing I want to do. This is the only thing that makes any sense. I had a daughter, and now at some point, we, obviously, I'm having to support this family, right? So this is the only thing that makes sense. I have to do this, and I have to do it now. And so I figured out, okay, what can I do? And I can only do what I can do with where I'm at. So I just started, and I'm sharing the journey along the way.
Beautiful. Man, that's how you get started. Like in so many of these things, like everyone gets started, and the I'm not good enough, and that I'm gonna wait until I am good enough before I start doing is the exact opposite of what you need to. So I
Yeah,
mean, you're on the path. I mean, a lot of people just getting up and get cracking on things, and being very public and open about it, because I mean that allows people to align and push with you on it. So
totally.
what right now? So you've created a short. Um,
Hmm.
what talk to me about the process of creating? You said you had collaborations, things like that. So do you do a whiteboard? Do you jot down all your notes? Do you take those notes and then turn them into a narrative? Or talk about your process from going from your idea to actually
Hmm.
getting a cartoon in your hands.
Totally. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've, for about 5 years now, had this thought in my mind that at some point I'm going to create a movie, or I'm going to create something, a visual, whether it's a cartoon or a movie or something like that. So yeah, I would say about 5 years ago, I started writing down everything, all my notes on my phone. Every time I had an idea, I would take my phone, write it down. And this has just become this insanely long note. And I actually read it through for the first time a while back, and it took me about 6 hours just to read these notes.
Awesome.
And it's everything from short pieces of script to camera angles to scene ideas and like setups, and of course characters and characteristics, archetypes, everything that I feel like this is gonna enrich my stories.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's how it started without having an idea of what it was going to turn into. And as this idea started to develop more and more, I I just kind of I sit down, and one of my practices is basically I close my eyes, I get into a very calm state, and I basically watch the show. I either I'll try to zoom in on a specific character that I've imagined that I think
Mhm.
would be very interesting, an interesting story to tell, or I just kind of let creativity tell me what story or who I'm following. So basically, I'll sit back, I close my eyes, and it's almost as if I'm watching a movie or the show already,
Mhm.
and it starts playing, obviously very visual. So it starts playing in my mind, and if I really like how it goes, it keeps going. If I get bored or if it doesn't make sense, I'll kind of like create a mental pause, and I'll rewind, and I'll redirect it. And then every once in a while, I'll read through my notes, and it reminds me, oh yeah, that's a concept that I forgot about. So I'll come back, and I'll redo it now with this concept in mind. And when I end up at something that I really enjoy, I'll write down. So I have just about, so my idea is for season one to be 10 episodes. We're following 10 different characters,
Mhm.
and right now I have about 8 rough drafts completed. So, and
Eight
it's
rough
just
drafts.
like,
So you have eight rough drafts. So you have 8 episodes, or you have the same
correct,
episode. Okay, got it.
correct. So 8 characters, rough drafts completed
Got
at
it.
this point. Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you have like, so when you're trying to put all these pieces together, because it sounds like you want to show the same day in different ways to show that everyone has a different truth or the same interaction per se. So
Yeah.
then with your, when you're trying to organize this, you're doing basically this mental model playthrough. So you have your eyes closed, you're playing through. If you go through a scene in your mind, you get an emotion from it, whether you giggle or you get surprised or whatever thing might be. You're like, oh, that's good. So then you pause, and then you write that down with your hands. Is that what that is? And then you capture that block, and then you carry on with the storyline. Is that the process?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I usually don't write down with my hands because then I still have to transfer to the computer later, and it's definitely been a thing. I have papers everywhere with like little snippets of gold, and
Yeah.
so I really try to write down on the computer as much as I can. But yeah, that's a very accurate gist of what's
Okay.
going down, and yeah, I think for a lot of people, it would just be a humongous mess. And I think that's just the way my mind works. It's just like a gigantic mind map inside my head, and I kind of have an idea of where everything is at. I think because it's been such a long process that I kind of organize and categorize things, and because of that, I really have a good idea of all the separate pieces. And the reason I haven't been able to finish an episode completely is because all of these 10 episodes are obviously very intertwined, right? They will interact with each other and cross each other's episodes, and we'll see, you
See,
know.
well, that's why I was curious with it. If you look at it's a lot of moving pieces going on, and the mental theater works really well. But sometimes if you have a lot of pieces like that, it might be a challenge to get it all right in your head. So I was just, do you take any of the frameworks, or do you take any of these pieces and put it on an actual, it could be digital or a physical whiteboard, and you're drawing out how they intertwine together? Is that what's going on, or do you?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've tried every idea that came to mind. I've done big whiteboards. I haven't yet, but I have this big wall right here in front of me. But for my wife's sanity, I haven't turned it in. I can see this whole entire wall becoming like a detective board, right, where there's like a
Right.
red thread.
Yeah. It's a
So,
wonderful experience, man. Yeah. But
yeah, absolutely.
you do take up
It,
real estate when you do it, for sure.
it's a pretty big mess. So yeah, it's in some crazy way I have it all kind of organized in my mind.
Yeah.
And yeah,
What?
every time that it develops, I just write it down on these drafts.
So then, are you planning on turning this into with the cartoon? What's about the distribution? Is this something that you want to do, like online distribution? Do you want to do it in virtual reality, or what's your plan to get this out to the masses?
Yeah, so this has been a really interesting question, and it's been something that I've tossed around a lot. It's something I've talked to a lot of friends about, and ultimately, my answer to the question is I don't know. It's just one of those things that I trust that the perfect thing will align. And obviously, there's still some time from here on out until the date of the premiere, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, the platform might not even exist yet, right?
Mhm.
So, I'm leaving it very open just because I feel if I decided today and I got so attached to the outcome and that ended up not actually being the best case scenario for me when the day comes, I just feel like it's going to be more difficult for me then. So that's a humongous decision and a very important one, and it's one that I've completely decided to hold off of, uh, just for that simple reason of when I know, and right
Sure.
now I don't.
That's
So,
it. You're trusting the process, which is great.
yeah.
What? Let me ask you, what are major roadblocks? What are you stuck on? What are the thresholds, guardians, keeping you back from doing what you need to do to get to the next phase of your journey?
Hmm. One thing is the whole idea of a 24-hour day. I wish I had like say 50 hours in a day. No. But I mean, honestly, it's I don't really see anything holding me back. Right now, it's for a long time it was definitely self-doubt.
Hmm.
It was a lot of internal things that I had to clear out and work
Hmm.
through. Um, but today I would absolutely say that I'm in the process and everything is just aligning and everything is happening, which is fairly new to be able to say, because for so long I would blame things, I would have excuses, and uh, you know, um, yeah, what usually happens is I set my alarm clock for 5 or 6 in the morning. I try to get up as early so my body can take, and I get about 2 to 4 hours every morning to get uninterrupted work. And then my daughter wakes up, and I become a dad for the most of the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So obviously that's kind of a thing, right, where there's only so much time in a day, and I have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things I would like to do with my life, and this is just one of those things.
Hmm.
Um, so, but yeah, I really don't think there's anything holding me back today other than the process itself that is taking its time. Um,
So
yeah,
so then it's just putting in the work, putting in the time, having a commitment to it, and then trying out steps in the journey. Love it.
yeah, yeah.
Got it. So what again got you to jump in? Because you said before you had self-doubt and you had uncertainty and you didn't believe that you were and you didn't have the skill sets, and then
Hmm.
you switched gears to saying now you're doing it, you're trusting the process, you're fully in. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what caused that transition?
Totally. Yeah. So I think a big piece of it was just doing things that I didn't enjoy for a long time, a big part of my life, and having had that background, which we talked about earlier, of having experienced death
Mm,
so frequently and having it so fairly close to my heart in a way
mm,
that I've kind of, I mean, it's primed me to. I just know that life is incredibly fragile, right? Because I've seen it,
mm,
I've experienced it. Talked to my best friend, and a couple of days later, he's gone for forever.
mm.
Just that type of experience is like it.
How
It
how recent was that?
that's been a few years. It's let's see, that must have been 2013,
Mm,
2013.
got it.
And just having had those experiences firsthand, I just cannot get myself to do something that I don't want to do, because I feel like I'm wasting time doing the things I want to do. I'm wasting life, and
Mm,
I just can't. So for a long time, I would say 2018, 2019, though, yeah, for pretty much 2 years, I did very, very little, bare minimum of really anything. Almost to the point where you could probably almost classify as some type of depression, in the depression state where I just didn't want to do anything, because I didn't want to do the things that I was supposed to do or that society tells you to do. Go out and make money, have a career. I'm like, but for what reason? Why am I gonna go down this path only to get stuck with a title or all these responsibilities, mortgage payments, when it's not what I want to do? Um,
mm.
so I just saw this clear path to more of what I didn't want. So what ended up happening was pretty much I entered this like very internal, the belly of the whale type of place
Mhm.
inside of myself where I just spent time alone or with myself in doing as much self-discovery as I could to find what I wanted. And it's such a simple question, right? What do you want? But it's a hard answer to. For me, it was a really hard answer to get to, uh, because of those like self doubts, mainly that I'm not good enough. How am I supposed to make it as an artist when so few do?
So then looking at that, so that's what I'm trying to understand. So that was in
Mm-hmm.
2013. So that was a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it wasn't until recently that you decided to turn it into high gear to go forward and make this happen. So
Yeah.
what happened in the recent time that caused you that? You said you did self-reflection, self-discovery, like you don't want to waste your life and you don't want
Mm-hmm.
to do things, you don't want to waste your time on things that you don't like to do that doesn't fill you up with excitement in life.
Yeah.
Um, but there was there a situation, was there, you did a bunch of journaling and over time the journaling gave you insights? Was it a meditative was it a gradual process over a period of a couple of months, or was it like was it an instantaneous thing when you experienced a certain event? That's what I'm trying to get clarity on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I would definitely call it a gradual process.
Mm,
Um, today I absolutely consider myself an artist.
mm,
When I was a young child, whenever I look through like old school journals and things, when I'd been asked the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Uh, Artist would be on that paper. But then my whole life growing up, that just fell off, right? I never believed that I could. But at the same time, I've always held on to it. I've always created. I've always been an artist whenever I got a chance to, right? I've always drawn, I've always kind of made things here and there. Um, and in this gradual process, I think that I found so much joy in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And as life continued to unfold, and as I was just stuck in this void, the only thing that I really found joy in was my art. And the only thing that I just found purpose in, the thing that made sense to me was art, despite the fact that it didn't pay any bills. So like in the society that we live in, it didn't make any sense. So I was very much stuck in that like reality versus my desires, right? Like there was a disconnect there. Um, and I think if there was one specific time or a moment where like I had to decide, or I felt like I did decide, was when my wife and I got pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had this moment of like, okay, so now I cannot do minimum anymore just to like have the absolute minimum to make all the bills. Like I don't want my daughter to grow up in that type of environment. I know that she will learn more than anything from my example. So I want her to grow up with, a father who believes in
Mm-hmm.
himself, who goes for his dreams, who even if the society says it's not possible, well, then I'm going to show that it is. Let me be this role model to you. And I think that is the kick I had to where like, okay, I'm just gonna this half-heartedness that's
Mm-hmm.
been a part of this whole journey for so long, it kind of moved into a level of devotion that I haven't experienced before. So yeah, definitely a gradual process up until I was like,
Right.
hold up, this is it. This is the only thing that makes any sense.
It became bigger than you because now you have to be responsible for a little life
Yeah,
that you are creating right now, co-creating with your wife,
exactly.
which is beautiful. So looking at that, so you talked to me about you get up early at 4 or 5 in the morning to do things. What other habits have you adopted, or what other habits do you wish you could adopt for daily rituals to keep you on this path?
That's a good question. It's something that it's been very much alive, very alive, and very on mine and my wife's mind recently. Um, for me, it's definitely some level of structure that that will just give me more specified time. Like whenever I do have time, because yeah, in the recent past, it's been more like, oh, she goes to breastfeed. I got 30 minutes. Let me run over to the office and work for 30 minutes. And every like window that I get, I'll jump in. Um, and I think having when our daughter was that little, it's so uncertain, right? It's things move very quickly, and we're brand new parents. We're still learning a lot, and so for a while, I felt like this part of my journey was kind of not on the top of my priority list. But now, as our daughter is getting a little bit older, when we can put her down in the playpen and she can kind of spend some time by herself. And we're starting to know who she is, and it's easier to design our lives a little bit more now that we actually have an idea who this third little person is in this family. So a lot of it has just been, I mean, by no means has it been the most productive or organized journey. I would say it's probably been the absolute straight up opposite, um, of what I could have done. But through this void that I've spent so much time in, I've learned so many lessons there specifically. And yeah, if I was to say that all that I'm doing this to create a show only, I would absolutely be lying to you. I think this whole project has been more than anything a self-discovery, or like I said, or like you read in the bio, it's been the process of purpose for me. So yeah, it's obviously like very live topic in the world today, and like productivity and do as much as you can as fast as you can and get as much out of the day as you possibly can. Um, like I told you, it's I get my 2 to 4 hours in the morning, and then we stroll for the rest of the day for the most part. We very much just we hang out.
Yeah.
We're parents, so yeah, it's not the most productive necessarily, but it's by far the most fulfilling for me.
Beautiful.
And that's definitely what I've come to is like I can live like these gurus tell me to live and to have get the most out of life,
Mm,
or I live the way that I decided that this is my ideal way to live, which I realized through all these years of spending time in the void and spending time seeking myself and connecting with myself is, a few hours of work and then a lot of play. And what ends up happening is through that play and through that going out and spending time with friends, that is when I get my absolute most creative ideas. So ultimately, that's where I get my content from. And then whenever I do sit down in the morning, that's when it just comes down on paper.
yeah, yeah. It's being a balanced, having a balanced life,
Yeah.
working, getting that thing out the way, spending time with the family, especially with the little one. It's just coming
Hmm.
out of it. Lots of time, lots of attention.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Let me ask you. So then, at the end of all of this, like, what do you hope to have? What would you like this like holy grail envision to look like for
Mm.
this conscious cartoon?
Mm. I've been playing around with multiple ideas. If like, is the cartoon going to be it, or and then I'm going to move on to the next thing, or is this just kind of like the beginning of its own little empire? I've definitely seen and felt this thing expanding and turning into, like we were talking about the first time we talked, is the gamified aspect in virtual reality. I
Hmm.
can see, I can see the cartoon in itself just being a cartoon, and that's a way for people to not only get to know the characters and like we've been talking about, helping bring down barriers between groups of people. But I can see this also then later turning into a virtual reality game, and even because these characters will be dealing with a lot of major life issues. We talked about depression a little bit. So, for example, another concept I've been playing around with is, what if then later after the episode you can go on and follow this monkey who is the depressed monkey, and then there's a specific resource or an online course, let's say, hosted by this monkey that is helping people deal and move through their depression.
Hmm.
So where it's not just this visual medium, but it's turning into a lot more. It's turning into a service, and it's turning into a way for people to really not only connect with this character, but to connect with themselves through this character
Hmm.
and take themselves through this tough experience that they're currently through or might have been stuck in for whatever period of time.
Got it. So you'd be able to take them from not only having an emotional connection with the story and the lessons learned, but be able to take those lessons and the emotional connections, combine that with a likable character, and then bring them to do something with that energy to learn mindful activities or other types of things that they could go through on some sort of online course to ultimately help them beyond just a story with a meaningful lesson. You want to take that and turn that into some sort of action for them. That would
Right,
yeah, that's awesome.
right.
What do you think in terms of the virtual reality pieces? What do you think are the biggest areas that would be a challenge for you to overcome?
Hmm. I would say today it's definitely yeah, just like from where I'm sitting right here right now, it's the technical aspect of like not really understanding or knowing the technicalities of how things work. Um, but then again, through my experience, I know how quickly you can connect with somebody who knows, and simply working with that person, that big, huge obstacle becomes a very small one, or maybe even an opportunity to create a lasting connection and a way to help somebody else who's a specialist in the areas that I'm not flourish and find another way to, you know, express their strengths or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
So
So it's the technical piece. How does this work? How does it function? How do I get my art into this whole virtual environment? And how does it? So it's all those technical blocks.
yeah,
Were you able to do things like this when you're talking about reaching out to people and having them more or less power level you on what you want to get done? Have you been able to do that with art and with the cartoons and everything? Is that something that you've been able to do, or are you kind of just done it more self discovery, going online and looking at those things?
yeah. So far, it's been very internal, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just because I want to at least have reached a certain level of knowing or understanding how things work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself by any means animating this whole entire show myself, right? But I want to know how animation works, and that's really why I'm learning the animated piece right now, is to better connect with the animators that I do end up working with in creating this show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, up until this point, it's been very personal and internal,
Mm-hmm.
and I see that shifting very soon. I've already made a lot of incredible connections very recently, that in different types of collabs and things like that, where we're just growing our respective, uh, you know, businesses, if you want to call it that, or creative pieces, and growing them together. So yeah, I see this shifting. I see it moving. I see it's working. And yeah, I'm really just, I don't see this as my show. It's just funny to say, but like in a lot of ways, I don't even see it as my show. I just see myself as the person it's made through. You know, like most of these stories aren't even my own. They're stories of my friends and stories of my peers,
Mm-hmm.
stories of people that I've met, and my experiences of them, right? So I'm just in a way the vessel that this is being created through, and yeah, whatever ends up happening, ends up happening. I'm very detached, which is an interesting idea. But I'm very detached to the outcome, and I'm very detached to even the process, which is like it's so loose, and it's like if this is supposed to be like a motivating message, it's like I don't know if it really is, but I mean, I guess
Well,
if I was to give a a piece of advice, it's like it might not be what society values, but holy fucking shit, I'm so fulfilled.
it's beautiful. Uh, Being non-attached to the outcome, but enjoying the process is, I mean, is the nuts and bolts to all of this, right? Otherwise, the you'll always kick the can for your pleasure.
Yeah.
You'll never be happy because it's, don't like speaking absolutes, but you're constantly kicking the can, and you'll never get to that destination. Versus if enjoying the process
Mm-hmm.
is fantastic. So I mean, it sounds like it's very well balanced. It's you're just putting in the work, and you seem to be kind of yeah, detached to the whole outcome of everything. Let me ask you a question. This non-attachment and putting the work and things like that. Who would you say are the people that are you study their works, or you because you say you're conscious, right? So where what masters did you follow? What mentors did you follow? What
Mm.
books are interesting to you? What for you has given you, besides the funerals and the death, what's given you perspective to kind of gain that conscious awareness?
Mm. My favorite author by far, I would say, is Deepak Chopra.
Mm,
I've read many of his books, and I think my favorite piece, or my favorite part, like my favorite thing about his books is in the way that he bridges spirituality and we'll say like I guess in a way like the Eastern versus the Western,
mm,
right? And like how it's one side's very spiritual and the other side is very mental. And he bridges that gap so beautifully, and he's just a master at metaphors. And he makes quantum physics super simple to understand, and just like very big picture things, including, mythology, for example, philosophy, medicine, biology, how the body actually works, quantum physics, and things like that. It's definitely helped me get a very much bigger picture of life. And instead of seeing myself as, blood and bone and personality, I see myself as consciousness with blood and bones, right? Self-identifying as consciousness versus this person sitting here, right? And of course, it's a practice and it's something that I'm always going to be learning. But whenever I kind of started to consciously making that decision to detach from the little me, life just became so much more simple. And yeah, I think that's been, in terms of philosophy and in terms of self-discovery, that's absolutely been my biggest drive. And in terms of film, um, for example, well, I just study other movies, honestly. 2019, my wife and I went to the movie theater 52 times. Yeah.
Is that
So
every
that's
weekend? Is that every weekend? Is that what happened?
honestly, it was well, we had this like membership, right, where you can
Yeah.
go like 3 times a week, and honestly, at a certain point, we went to the movies as soon as a new movie came out because we'd seen all of it, right? So we were just waiting for the next ones to come out. So sometimes it was 3 times a week, sometimes it wasn't for a few weeks in between. But yeah, we ended up going 52 times in one year, and
2019?
2019. And I brought a notebook to every movie and I took notes, and same thing there, like the things I would have done on my phone. It's just like, oh, that's a really cool scene, or that's a really cool way how they introduce this character, or I love how they resolve this conflict, or just like things that I
Do
really enjoyed about these different movies.
you have a favorite movie from 2019?
Mm, dang, I should have looked this up before. There were some fantastic movies that year for sure.
Yeah.
I think some of our favorite movies, funny enough, right? But there were definitely some of the Pixar movies that were out. I feel like Pixar's been kicking ass recently. They've been coming out with some bomb stuff.
Yeah, Pixar's got some strong game.
Yeah, they
So
do.
they
They
came out
do.
with Soul, right? Didn't they do Soul?
Soul is the I don't know if it's the most recent, but yeah, it's yeah, a fantastic movie. Probably the best animation I've ever seen.
Yeah.
If you look into detail on like the hair and the skin and the texture and things, I mean, it's insane what these guys are doing. These guys and girls.
Yeah. They've gotten it down to like a mechanized system, which is super
Yeah,
impressive. It's super impressive.
yeah, it really is. It really is.
That's awesome. Well, that sounds incredible. And so, is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before you tell people how to get a hold of you and find out more about the work that you do?
If there's anything I would let people know, yeah, I mean, if there's anything I can leave you guys, your viewers, with after listening to this is like embrace the mess. Um, don't try to like don't try to make sense of things when things don't make any sense. If there's one lesson that I've learned spending all this time in the void, is like when the universe is ready, the universe is ready, and you'll know it. When things have moved in my life, it's been so obvious and it's been so in my face that I could not. I mean, some of the experiences I've had where it's just the most incredible manifestation seemingly, right? But it's been a process, and it's something I wanted for so long, and instead of pursuing it actively, I set the intention, I sent it away, and I let the world know that this is what I want, and I held on to it, right? But at the same time, I was very detached to the outcome of it,
Mm.
and in due time, it always shows up. So yeah, know what you want, or if you don't, find out. And if you don't know how to find out, try as many things as you can. Just experience, even in the worst things, even in things like death is where I found some of my absolute most profound and most valuable lessons. So there is lessons and value in every experience. And so, yeah, just embrace what's in front of you. That's what I would say to anybody listening.
Love it. Love it. And Victor, if people want to find out about you and your new short that's going to be releasing tomorrow,
Yeah.
how do they find out about you and where to find that content?
So, yeah, actually, I'm going live tonight, showing this little short, and that'll be on my Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, just facebook.com/kvictork, Victor with a C, K Victor K.
Do you want to, just spell that out real quick for us?
So KVICTOR and a K again. So that's my personal Facebook. You'll be able to see everything I create in terms of bananas. There's a Facebook page that you can find. Just search Bananas the Show on Facebook. You'll find that. And on Instagram as well, at Bananas the Show is where I post and upload and update everything that we got going on. Another fun thing that we're doing that I'll share, this last thing I'll share with you guys here, is I have this Insiders Club, which is really exciting. I think you can think of it almost as the Bananas Writers Room. And it's a closed group that we have on Facebook. It's for, so sidestep, I'm fundraising on GoFundMe, and there's different tiers, right? But the most popular tier on there is a $50 tier, and basically what you get for that is access to the Bananas Insiders Club, which I'll post a lot more intimately about my process and the actual work in terms of story, in terms of characters. And since I am this early on in the journey of creating this, I also post a lot of polls and questions and writing prompts, and basically it's an opportunity for community, for the fans, for the viewers to influence the outcome of the show, and for everybody to have a hand in how this all comes together. So it's super exciting. Every time I write any of these writing prompts, we get a lot of really cool responses. And basically what's up happening is I read it through, obviously, and whatever we love is, and basically ends up being put into the script. So it's just a cool way for people to be part of the process. If you've ever been somebody like me who's been wanting to create something but might not have the means or time or the space to do it in the capacity that I'm doing it right now, it's just a cool place to be part and do the thing. So
that's awesome. On the GoFundMe, Bananas the Show, you can Instagram, Facebook, K Victor K on Facebook. Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate your time, and best luck on your conscious cartoon journey, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. All right.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes Quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening. See you on the